Welcome to the Cake Academy podcast, the podcast for cake makers who want to raise their standards, price with confidence, and build a business that actually works. I'm Cheryl, cake business coach and founder of Cheryl Bottomley Cake Academy and Tier & Co cake management software. And each week I'm going to be sharing honest conversations, practical strategies, and real industry insights to help you move from simply making cakes to running a profitable and sustainable cake business. So if you're ready to stop undercharging, stop second guessing, and start building something stronger, you are in the right place. So let's get into today's episode. Today's podcast, we are talking about 4 tools that help cake makers build a profitable cake business. And one of the things I realised quite early on when I started helping other cake makers was that most cake makers weren't actually missing talent. They could decorate beautifully and they cared about the customers, and their work is just incredible. And they also work incredibly hard as well. But what they were missing is systems behind the scenes. And that is the structure, the numbers, and the business side that turns cake making into a reliable income. And over the years, after working with hundreds of cake makers and running my own wedding cake business as well, I kept seeing the same 4 problems come up again and again. And it's things like we don't know how to price properly, or we're not sure how to do it or what to price, and we'd end up copying other cake makers. They didn't know what they actually needed to earn, whether that's on a monthly basis or an annual basis. And they didn't have systems to manage their inquiries and orders. And when they wanted real growth, they often needed personalised guidance. So what's happened is over time, I've created 4 tools that help solve these problems. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. And I'll go through them individually because together they're going to form a really clear path for building a stronger cake business. So let's start with the first one. And you can find all the links in the show notes below as well. So the first one is my free cake pricing calculator. And as I mentioned, pricing, as we know, is one of the biggest areas that cake makers can struggle with. And I see it all the time, conversations in Facebook groups, sites that undercharge, and just general conversations that I have with cake makers. Us as cake makers can spend hours creating absolutely stunning cakes. We deliver them perfectly. Our customers are delighted. But when we actually sit down afterwards and look at the numbers, we can realise that actually we didn't make much money at all. And I am telling you this from experience as well. And sometimes we barely cover the cost of the ingredients when we actually start looking at the numbers. And the problem is that many cake makers are guessing their prices. They're looking at what someone else is charging, they round the numbers up or down, or they just estimate the ingredients and materials and all the expenses. But the profitable cake businesses can't be built on guesswork, and they're not. So what the cake pricing calculator does is a simple tool that actually helps you price individual cakes properly, and it allows you to input your ingredients and materials. Obviously, you do need to know this information. You can factor in your time, you can add your tax and national insurance percentages, and also your profits, and it gives you that understanding of what the cake actually needs to sell for in order for it to make a business sense and to say yes. And it removes the guesswork. And what it can also do, it can highlight if you've got a problem with undercharging for your cakes. And when you use the cake pricing calculator, each cake you cost up, you can also email that through to you. So you basically got the results there for yourself to look at and to be able to quote your customers. So if you do want that free cake pricing calculator, the link is actually in the show notes. So you can just bob down there and have a look. Now, once cake makers start pricing properly, the next question usually appears. And that is, how much do I actually need to earn each month or year. And this is where the Cake Maker income plan actually comes in. And this is a simple planning calculator tool that helps you work backwards from the income that you actually want to pay yourself. So what I mean is the income that actually goes into your bank account. So just to give you an example, if you say you want, say, £3,000 in per month in your bank account, the next step is actually understanding what the business actually needs to generate to make that possible. Because we have to consider things like expenses, tax, national insurance, the real cost of running a cake business, your profits, and all that kind of thing. So, what the income plan helps you do, it helps you to work this out, and it shows you things like what your net income actually needs to be, how many cakes you realistically need to sell to hit that income goal, and what your average order value needs to be. What your income targets actually look like in terms of real orders. And for many cake makers, this is a moment that everything starts to click, because instead of hoping for more orders, you can then start running your cake business with clear targets, because you know exactly how many cakes you need to book in. And it's not just your cake targets, everything else falls off the back of this in terms of like your marketing and how you're running your business. Now, the third piece of the puzzle is organisation. Because even when you're talented and you're pricing correctly and you've got your goals, things can still feel chaotic behind the scenes. Things like enquiries get lost in messages, order details end up in notebooks or scattered across different apps. Recipes, ingredients, and costs are difficult to track. And that's exactly why I've created Tia & Co cake management software. And this is a system that's designed specifically for cake makers to manage their business. And it allows you to track your inquiries, understand your conversion rates from inquiries to bookings, manage your orders, also communicate with your customers via the software, track things like your ingredients, your recipes, your materials, which can all be added to your orders. You can also price your cakes and run business performance reports and so much more, basically all in one place. And this massively helps with your marketing as well. So instead of juggling like spreadsheets, messages, and notes, everything sits inside one organized system. Because when your business becomes organized, you free up a huge amount of mental space, because you're not consistently searching for information or trying to remember details. You're actually running a structured business. And actually, who doesn't want that? We all want a structured business and something that's organized and not chaotic. And finally, there are cake makers who reach a point where they want deeper support. You know you want to grow, you know you want more cake bookings, but you want someone experienced to help you refine that strategy. And that's where my 6-week one-to-one program, the Cake Business Breakthrough, comes in. And this is where we work closely together to look at the foundations of the business, things like your positioning, your pricing, your marketing, your inquiry handling, and the systems that actually help you move from inconsistent bookings to a business that actually feels more predictable and profitable. Because sometimes the fastest progress happens when you have that personalised guidance rather than basically trying to figure it all out on your own. So those are the 4 main tools that I have that support cake makers. So it's a pricing calculator that helps you price your cakes properly, which is a free calculator that you can use. We've then got the income plan that helps you set realistic financial goals for the month or the year. And then there's Tia & Co cake management software that helps you organise and manage your cake business. And then there's my 6-week one-to-one program to help you accelerate growth and personal support. And each one of those solves a different stage of your journey. And together they can create a much clearer path for building a cake business that actually works for you financially. Because making those beautiful cakes is one skill, but running a profitable cake business is totally another. And when you bring both of those together, it's when things start to really, really change. So if you'd like to explore any of the tools that we've mentioned in today's episode, you'll find all the links down below in the notes. Why don't you start initially by downloading the free cake pricing calculator to see and understand if you are actually including all your expenses and costing your cakes properly. But if you do want help working out what your business actually needs to earn, you can use a Cake Maker income plan. If you're ready to organise your cake business properly, you can learn more about Tier & Co cake management software. And lastly, if you want a more hands-on approach, there's my 6-week one-to-one program that might be right for you, and all the details are below. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Cake Academy podcast. If today's episode gave you clarity, challenged your thinking, or helped you look at your cake business differently, make sure that you check the show notes below for any links, tools, or resources that's been mentioned. If this episode helped you in any way, I'd really appreciate it if you shared it with another cake maker. You can leave a rating or you can write a review. These simple actions make a real difference and help more cake makers find practical, honest guidance for building a stronger business. You can also watch the full episode over on YouTube, where I share the full conversation and any visuals that supports today's topic. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next episode.